It was Friday night, the kind of night where the air feels electric, and the full moon casts an eerie glow over everything. The streets were quiet, almost too quiet, as if the whole world was holding its breath. All my friends were gone, off to their own weekend adventures. My parents were asleep, their soft snores echoing through the house, a reminder of the normalcy I was about to leave behind. I was bored out of my mind, staring at the ceiling, counting the minutes until something, anything, would happen. The silence was deafening, and the dim light of my phone screen was the only thing keeping me company. So when my phone buzzed with a text from Billy, I was ready for anything. The sudden vibration broke the monotony, and I grabbed my phone with a mix of excitement and curiosity. "Meet me at the school park, midnight. Don't be a chicken," it read. A dare, typical Billy. He always knew how to stir things up, how to push just the right buttons to get a reaction, but the school park at midnight, that was creepy even for him. The thought of the deserted park with its rusty swings and shadowy corners sent a shiver down my spine. Still, something inside me, some deep down urge to prove myself, made me grab my shoes. Maybe it was the thrill of the unknown, or the need to show Billy I wasn't afraid. I snuck out my window into the cool night air. The world outside was a different place at night, filled with shadows and secrets waiting to be discovered. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows as I made my way to the park. Each step echoed in the stillness, and the familiar streets seemed foreign and strange. My heart pounded in my chest, a steady drumbeat of fear and excitement. What awaited me at the park? Was this just another one of Billy's pranks, or was there something more to this midnight rendezvous? As I walked past darkened houses, I couldn't help but wonder if anyone else was awake, watching from behind their curtains. The occasional flicker of lights in windows made me feel like I was being observed, adding to the tension. I gripped a small flashlight tightly in my hand, its beam cutting through the darkness. The light provided a small comfort, but it also cast long dancing shadows that played tricks on my mind. Finally, I reached the entrance of the school park. The gate creaked open with a sound that seemed to echo for miles. I hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The park was just as creepy as I had imagined. The swings moved slightly in the breeze, and the empty playground equipment looked like ghostly silhouettes in the moonlight. I looked around nervously, scanning the park for any sign of Billy. The silence was almost oppressive, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant hoot of an owl. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Billy. "I'm here, where are you?" I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. At least I wasn't alone, but where exactly was he? I walked deeper into the park, the beam of my flashlight sweeping across the ground. Every shadow seemed to move, and every sound made me jump. The anticipation was almost unbearable. Suddenly, a pair of shoes stepped into the light. I looked up, my heart skipping a beat. It was Billy with that familiar mischievous grin on his face. "Took you long enough," he said, his voice breaking the tension. We laughed, the tension melting away. Whatever Billy had planned, I was ready. The night was ours, and the adventure had just begun. And the park was always filled with the sounds of kids laughing and playing, but not tonight. Tonight, it was silent. The usual cacophony of joy and excitement was replaced by an eerie stillness that seemed to hang in the air like a thick fog. The absence of sound was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the usual lively atmosphere that made this place a haven for children and parents alike. It was as if the park itself had fallen into a deep, unsettling slumber. The swings hung motionless like ghosts suspended in midair. They swayed ever so slightly in the gentle breeze, but their movement was almost imperceptible. Each swing seemed to tell a story of the countless children who had once played on them, their laughter now a distant memory. The chains creaked softly, a haunting reminder of the life that once filled this place. It was as if the swings were waiting, yearning for the return of the children who had abandoned them. The slide, usually a beacon of excitement, stood cold and metallic under the dim glow of the streetlights. Its surface, once polished by the countless trips of eager children, now seemed dull and lifeless. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows that danced on the ground, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. The slide, which had once been a symbol of joy and adventure, now looked like a relic of a forgotten time, a monument to the absence of laughter and play. The only sound was the rustling of leaves in the wind. The trees, their branches swaying gently, seemed to whisper secrets to one another. The wind carried with it a chill that cut through the night, adding to the sense of unease that permeated the park. The leaves, once vibrant and full of life, now lay scattered on the ground, their colors muted by the darkness. It was as if the park itself was mourning the loss of its youthful energy. I sat down on one of the swings, the metal chains cold against my skin. Where was Billy? The question echoed in my mind, each repetition growing louder and more urgent. The swing, which had once been a source of joy, now felt like a prison, its chains binding me to a moment of uncertainty and fear. The cold metal seemed to seep into my bones, amplifying the chill that had settled in my heart. I looked around, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, but the darkness offered no answers. A shiver ran down my spine. It was a sensation that went beyond the physical, a deep primal fear that gripped me and refused to let go. The park, once a place of safety and happiness, now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and hidden dangers. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of the swing seemed to carry with it a sense of foreboding. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that unseen eyes were tracking my every move. Maybe this hadn't been such a good idea after all. The thought lingered in my mind, a nagging doubt that refused to be silenced. I'd come here searching for answers, for some sign of Billy, but all I had found was a deepening sense of dread. The park, once a place of joy and laughter, now felt like a haunted relic of the past. I stood up from the swing, the chains clinking softly, and took one last look around. The shadows seemed to close in, and I knew it was time to leave. The park, with its empty swings and slides, would have to wait for another day. And then I saw it. It was a night like any other, or so I thought. The park was quiet, the air still, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. I had been walking my usual path, lost in thought, when something caught my attention. A flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. It was so quick, so subtle, that I almost dismissed it as a trick of the light. But something made me stop and look closer. At the edge of the woods that bordered the park, something moved. It was barely visible, a shadow among shadows, but there was a distinct sense of presence, of something watching. It was just a shadow at first, dark and shapeless. My heart began to race as I strained to see more clearly. The darkness seemed to thicken around it, as if it were drawing the night into itself, but as I watched, my breath catching in my throat, it began to take form. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the shadow coalesced into a more defined shape. It was as if the darkness itself was molding into something tangible. It was like a wolf, long and lean with powerful legs. Its body was sleek and muscular, built for speed and strength, but there was something off. Something not quite right about its appearance, but it moved with a feline grace, slinking from tree to tree. Each movement was fluid, almost hypnotic, as if it were dancing with the shadows. It was both beautiful and terrifying to watch. Its eyes, 2 points of glowing amber, fixed on me. They were like burning embers in the darkness, piercing through the night with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Those eyes held a strange intelligence, a knowing that sent chills down my spine. And that's when I knew. This was no ordinary animal. It was something else, something otherworldly. The realization hit me like a cold wave, and I felt a primal fear take hold. I wanted to run, to get as far away from that creature as possible, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to tear my gaze away. The night seemed to close in around us, the world shrinking to just me and the shadow. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and frantic in the silence. What was this thing? Where had it come from? And why was it here in this quiet park on this ordinary night? The questions swirled in my mind, but there were no answers, only the oppressive weight of the unknown. The creature took a step forward, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. It was coming closer, and I had to do something, but what? My mind raced, searching for a plan, a way out. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shadow melted back into the darkness. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving me standing alone in the night, shaken and bewildered. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, trying to make sense of what I had seen, but there was no making sense of it. It was a mystery, a shadow in the night, and it would haunt my dreams for a long time to come. See anything? Billy's voice startled me. He was suddenly beside me, grinning. I pointed a trembling finger towards the woods. There, I whispered. Billy squinted into the darkness. "I don't see anything." He sounded skeptical, but I could tell he felt it too. The weird vibe in the air, the feeling that we were being watched. "It was there a second ago," I insisted. "It looked like a wolf, but different." We both fell silent, listening for any sound from the woods. All we could hear was the beating of our own hearts. "You think it could be Chupacabra?" Billy whispered, his eyes wide. We had heard stories, local legends whispered around campfires and during sleepovers. The Chupacabra, a creature of the night that preyed on livestock, was said to have sharp claws and glowing eyes. "Or maybe a skinwalker," I said, remembering another chilling tale. A skinwalker was a shapeshifter, a malevolent being that could take on the form of any animal it chose. The thought sent shivers down my spine. The woods were silent, but the feeling of being watched intensified. And then I saw it again, a faint glimmer of light, like a pair of eyes reflecting the moonlight. They were closer now, moving slowly towards us. I couldn't breathe. Billy must have seen it too because he grabbed my arm. "Come on," he hissed, "let's get out of here." We didn't need to be told twice. We ran faster than we had ever run before, our lungs burning, our legs pumping. The image of those glowing eyes spurred us on, fueling our terror. I didn't dare look back. The sound of our own footsteps was deafening as we raced down the empty streets. We didn't stop running until we reached my house, both of us gasping for breath. We spent the rest of the night huddled in my room, whispering about what we had seen. Was it real, or just a figment of our overactive imaginations? We couldn't be sure. The next day, we went back to the park, hoping for some kind of explanation. Maybe we'd find tracks or some other sign of the creature, but there was nothing. The memory of that night, the chilling image of those glowing eyes, stayed with me long after. I never went back to the park at night, and sometimes when the wind howls and the shadows grow long, I wonder if I really saw what I think I saw. The mystery remains, and maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it so terrifying.